Welcome, everybody. It's Tuesday, April 11th. I am John Aravosis. You are here for the Aravosis Report, my nightly show, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, U.S. from Washington, D.C., where we talk about the latest news from Ukraine. As always, we got to wait for folks to arrive, so I'm going to get TikTok rolling here on my iPad, and then we will also wait like 3 minutes or so for folks to arrive on YouTube and everywhere else that you guys are over there on my laptop. And hang on, I'm going to, oops. All right. I'm finally learning to get around the games here. TikTok games. Oh my God, there it is. Jeez. TikTok just changed all the settings. They changed where they're all located. They do this every few months, I think, just to make sure like no old people use it. So they just change the settings entirely. And if you can't figure it out, you can't figure it out. It's like, oh well. Drive me bonkers, these people. Anyway, all right. I'm trying to adjusting the color a little bit. There we go. Maybe that's a little less orange. All right. Anyway, hello, everybody. As always, like I said, we'll wait a couple minutes, introduce yourselves, and we will wait a few minutes for folks to arrive. But how's all? We've got actually a lot of news today. So thanks for the hat there. Oh, Edsel, hey. Oh, man. But yeah, lots of news. Interesting news today. There's always lots of news, but I mean, today's a particularly lots of news kind of day. This is my full-time job. Yes. Yep. I decided to work full-time on the war last year. I mean, this is the kind of stuff I do, basically, meaning a lot of social media, internet, politics, activism, news, all that kind of stuff. Thank you for the Wonder Dog, Danke schön. And I decided to do it. Doesn't pay well enough. Let me rephrase that. It paid well enough in the last year to pretty much break even, but ish. So but it's getting there. It's been growing, so it's worth it, I think, just to keep. It's worth it because the issue matters too. But anyway, all right, guys, another half minute or so, and then we'll get rolling. All right. And I am heading home for Easter on Saturday, correct? With COVID, our COVID household. Very exciting. I'm very excited for that, but what do? You know? Oh, that's okay, Paul. All right, guys, I'll do a quick introduction. We'll get rolling. I am John Aravosis. Again, this is the Aravosis Report. It's my nightly show we do every Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern, where I talk about the latest news from Ukraine. Usually the first half of the show or so, I will do the news, tell you what I think matters and what actually is going on. And then the second half of the show, I'll take your guys' questions. In order to submit your questions, and thank you, Kanasi, and I will always thank you for your gifts as well. In order to take your questions on TikTok, the easiest thing is to go to my profile, look for the Q&A link, and click that and submit questions that way. It's just easier because they line up and they're easier for me to go see. They don't like scroll off the screen. So in other words, they'll be there in 20 minutes. For the rest of you, obviously you can use the comment box at the bottom of the screen. I very much appreciate when you guys can do super chat questions and super stickers on TikTok and the gifts on YouTube and the gifts you do on TikTok. I've got TikTok here on my iPad. I've got the rest of you on my laptop over there because as somebody was just saying earlier, I do this full time. I decided to do this full time when the war broke out, and you're my income. Nobody's paying me to do this other than you guys. So thank you for the gifts. Please keep them coming. All right. And thank you for the cuddle with me, inspired woman. So let's get rolling. So it is, I didn't even update my day. It is day 411 of Vladimir Putin's 10-day war in Ukraine, 10-day special military operation, excuse me. We have our drone extender fundraiser that's been going really well. We did a live this morning with my friend Vlad in Ukraine. We raised another $1,000 during that live. You guys are amazing. We only need another probably $150 or so. Little more wouldn't hurt because Vlad's got some other things related to the drone he wants to spend some money on. But it's an extender that they did some tests. It is allowing them to extend the distance on the military drone. The military asked them for this, to extend the distance you can operate the drone by 8 to 10 times. Okay, so multiply by 8 to 10 times the normal distance for the drone. This piece of technology lets it go even farther. They're about $612 each. We're getting 3 of them. And as I said, we're about, I think, $130 short or so, but Vlad wants to get some additional wires that help to basically hide it inside the house so that you don't get bombed when you're controlling the drone. And those are like $17 each. I mean, Vlad's like looking for the best deal everywhere. So bottom line is, if you give a little bit more, it's not going to be the end of the world, because we will use it on either other drone stuff, or we will use it for camouflage for the troops that we're helping them buy camouflage as well. In any case, thank you guys so much for that. I really appreciate it. If you want to still donate, go to my profile on TikTok. Thank you, Elle, for the dog. Go to my profile on TikTok, click the link, Linktree link, and you will see the first thing that comes up is Vlad's PayPal address. You can copy that and go to your own PayPal and send it. You guys use the aravosis.com link, or that is Vlad's PayPal. Basically another $200 would set us pretty. That would allow Vlad to get the extra stuff he wants. And as I said, if we go over a little bit, we're going to use it on the rest of the military stuff anyway. So thank you guys. 100% goes to Ukraine. I'm not touching it. You amazing. Thank you. Thank you, Bonnie, for the dog. So, all right. So, the first story I wanted to mention, I'm obviously not going to show you this once I tell you what it is. You'll appreciate why. Thank you, Harold, for the hat and mustache. There is video going around that is getting a lot of attention. I mean, it's worth mentioning. I'm not going to show you, but you'll know why. The video, first of all, it's blurred, which is good and bad. It's good because it's less gross, but actually, I looked at the blurred version. It's still really freaky. The problem is, being blurred also means a little harder to tell if it's real. The video purports to be Russian troops sawing off the head of a Ukrainian soldier. I believe the soldier is alive. It's really bad. It's really bad. As I said, I like to be objective about this stuff. This is one of those stories where I would say, do we know the video is real? No. Do we know this is the kind of thing the Russians would do? Yes. Absolutely, positively. So, let's see. I'm just telling you guys because the story's out there. You will hear about it. But I think it's important to be, there is an unblurred version. Okay, I did not know that, Expanding Universe. Thank you. So there is an unblurred version. But it's the kind of thing where I just like us to be careful until we know it's real. Having said that, remember, the Russians did this before. They had a Ukrainian soldier, and this video, I think, was they even found out who the soldier was who did it. A Russian soldier who took a Ukrainian prisoner of war, cut off his genitals while he was alive, and then shot him in the head. All of this on camera. So, as I said, would not put this past. This is the kind of thing the Russians would do and have done before. Hopefully it's not true in this case, but Bakhmut. So Bakhmut, we'll start with that. Bakhmut, as you hopefully know by now, is the big battle going on in eastern Ukraine, right around here. It is a Ukrainian town that is still in control by the Ukrainians. The Russians have been attacking it for 7 to 10 months, depending who you talk to. You see different estimates, but between 7 months and 10 months, the Russians have been trying to take this little town of 60,000 people. It's a small town. From the American perspective, I would say from the Western NATO perspective, the town is irrelevant. It does not help the Russians take over the rest of the region. It also doesn't really help the Ukrainians to hold it. But up until now, the thinking has been that it has been so detrimental to the Russians trying to take this town. The Russians lose so many troops compared to how many troops the Ukrainians lose defending the town. The estimate that NATO gave was 5-1. So 5 Russian troops dying trying to attack this town for every 1 Ukrainian troop. Start this again. 5 Russian troops dying attacking this town for every 1 Ukrainian troop dying defending this town. In military terms, those are really good numbers. So up until now, the Ukrainians have been fighting because they've got to fight the Russians somewhere. Why not fight the Russians in the location where the odds are more in their favor, right? They're more the Ukrainians' favor. In any case, Bakhmut may finally be in its final days. Let's see. We've heard this before. But somebody who I do like listening to, Michael Clark, who's a defense expert on Sky News, he was talking about it today. Let me just read you the quote he said. They're fighting now in the center of the city in Bakhmut. The key issue is there is only one road out. So there's only one road in and out of town for the Ukrainians, okay, for where the Ukrainians are. If that road gets taken by the Russians or gets about to be taken by the Russians, the Ukrainians have got to get out of there because they have no way of getting out. And if they're surrounded, then they're going to be killed. So he said they've really got to get out if that road is impassable to them. I think we're in a few days of that happening now. So he's a big military expert for Sky News. I should say British military expert, really. He thinks we're a couple days out from Bakhmut being surrounded and basically it's over. Let's see. Again, doesn't really matter. I mean, again, this will not have a big impact on the war. Another leaked document. So, not another. Let me rephrase this. Another of the leaked documents. We know that there's a lot of documents that were leaked. Thank you, Carmel, for the Cheems dog. These were American. In case you guys heard, maybe some of you are new and you haven't really heard this, but a number of U.S. military documents, some of them pretty high level, some low level, but some pretty high level, were leaked. We don't know how. They ended up showing up on the internet on Discord. We don't know if the Russians did it. We don't know if an American helped them. It certainly has the patina of it being the Russians because of the kind of information that's leaked, the way it's meant to embarrass the U.S., the way it's meant to hurt the U.S. effort in Ukraine with our allies. That reeks of Russia. It just does. Who released the information? We don't know. I was hearing today that like some of the memos that were released were memos prepared for the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So these were memos, sort of the daily briefing that goes to the top levels of the American, the literally top Secretary of the Army, Secretary of the Navy, Marines, Air Force, right? The top men and women in our military leaders get these briefings. Somebody got them and leaked them. Now, what the one is saying that is I'm mentioning this one actually, not to freak you out. I'm mentioning this one because I wanted to burst the bubble on this one leak because it's one of those leaks, and the next one too that I'm going to talk about, that you think initially like, oh my God, and then you look a little more closely and go, there's nothing there. Listen to this. This was from the Washington Post. Ukraine's challenges in massing troops, ammunition, and equipment could cause its military to fall, quote, well short of Kyiv's original goals for an anticipated counteroffensive aimed at retaking Russian-occupied areas this spring, according to U.S. intelligence assessments contained in, in a growing leak of classified documents revealing Washington's misgivings. Labeled top secret, the bleak assessment from early February warns of significant, quote, force generation and sustainment shortfalls and the likelihood that such an operation will result in only modest territorial gains. So what they're saying, now mind you, they said bad stuff about the Russians too, which I'm going to get to in a second. What they're saying is U.S. intelligence, now this document might have been as late as, this one I'm not sure. I didn't see the date on this one. This one hopefully is back March 1st or so. I don't know. But that's a good point. Somebody on TikTok asked, are the documents dated? King Kong. Actually, if somebody wants to go to the Washington Post right now and have a look, I'd be curious. I did not, I was reading through the article. I didn't notice the date, but I wasn't paying attention for the date in any case. But that's interesting because the point is, the older the documents are, the less that estimate is relevant. Because, for example, you would, didn't see there was a super chat. If the U.S. is estimating on March 1st that something's going to happen, well, it's been 6 weeks now, practically, right? So the estimate would be different now. I will say a couple things on this. First of all, I don't think there's anything big surprise there. The U.S. intelligence community is worried that Ukraine may not be able to pull off the spring offensive. And when I say pull off, I mean get much of their land back. Yeah, we're all worried about that. I mean, I just don't feel like there's anything really earth-shattering that we're reading there, right? The Pentagon's worried. The Pentagon is worried that Ukraine might not be able to pull it off. Okay. I mean, now, mind you, the good news about this actually is, and sorry, Brown Coat is saying, are we sure they're authentic? We're not sure. We don't know. I will say the way the Pentagon and others are acting, it sure seems like some of this is authentic. I will say that. But the good thing here is it doesn't matter what intelligence says. What I mean is it makes me worry if U.S. intelligence thinks Ukraine will have a hard time with its counteroffensive. Okay, that worries me. Does that change anything now that it's released? No, it just makes me worry. It doesn't make it any harder for the Ukrainians. It doesn't mean that Biden's going to give them less weapons or fewer weapons. If anything, potentially, this could pressure Biden to give more weapons because now Biden is saying publicly that basically he was told, his military leaders were told privately that this is looking a little risky. Well, if he was told that privately and didn't say, you know what, let's give them more, that would be a problem, right? So if anything, I think potentially it puts pressure on Biden to give more, which is good. But I don't, as I said, I'm not trying to spin this. It worries me, but it's not a dangerous leak is my point. It's just a, I guess maybe embarrassing leak. I don't know. Cliff Wolf is saying info on the leaked documents doubts Ukraine will gain much from. Oh, that's the story. Will gain much from counteroffensive. It criticized Ukraine, but zero mention of how the U.S. defended or denied Ukraine weapons. Well, Cliff raises a good point. One of the issues that I always raise, and the Ukrainians kind of raised it today. They kind of said, we should be focusing on helping us actually win this. And Ukraine doesn't want to really bite the hand that feeds it. So it doesn't want to really piss off the US or criticize Biden or anybody else. But there is an issue here that the reason Ukraine, actually, I was reading, it must have been this article. I don't have it in front of me, but one of the articles was talking about this and said that the document was saying, it just wasn't clear that Ukraine has the armaments it needs to win like the counteroffensive. And I'm going, yeah, no kidding. No kidding. Ukraine has said forever that it needs ATACMS missiles, that it needs these, thank you, Superdog, Bonnie for the Superdog, that it needs ATACMS. These missiles that can go, or rockets that can go 200 miles, 300 kilometers. They've said forever they need that. The experts have said Ukraine needs it forever. Thank you, Boost Fighter, for the hat. Biden doesn't want to do it. Biden is afraid of pissing off Putin, so he didn't want to do it. And we've been saying Ukraine needs tanks. Well, guess what? The Germans wouldn't come along until January. The Germans finally came along, and guess who wouldn't come along? Us. The Germans said, we're not going to give our tanks unless the Americans do. As I said at the time, I thought it was a little jerky of the Germans to do that. Thank you, Boost Fighter, for that as well, the superpower. But the fact that we didn't just say, you know what, let's give some tanks too, that bothers me. By waiting until January, and the U.S. finally did, but by waiting until January to okay these tanks, we delayed the entire process. The U.S. now will not be able to get tanks to Ukraine until this fall, maybe even October. And October is like at the earliest. That's horrific. Guess what? Had we approved these tanks 8 months ago, 9 months ago, they would have been getting the tanks right now, because that 10-month like leeway, or that 10-month headwind, or whatever you want to call it, the clock would have started ticking 10 months ago. So it takes 10 months. The 10 months would have been now. They would have had tanks. Right? Had we given them the long-range weapons they need, the Ukrainians would have been able to hit the Russian weapons depots. They would have been able to hit the Russian military barracks, the Russian military headquarters, much more of them than they can hit right now. They would be able to hit the Kerch Bridge and take out the bridge. Now, the bridge is important symbolically, that bridge that got hit before a couple months ago, but it also is important in terms of supplying Crimea. Thank you for the unicorn there, the Unicorn Fantasy GC. That's one of my, actually, that's a very nice one too, I know. Thank you for that. Kerch Bridge down here, you can't see it, but Russia is over here and then all the way over here. The Russians, because Russia's over here, they needed to steal this land from Ukraine, so they had a land bridge, a land connection to Crimea and all of this. Their other connection is a bridge cutting across here. The town of Kerch is here, okay? Well, the Ukrainians, we think, at one point bombed the bridge last September or October or so, took the bridge out of commission for a while, mostly, and now it's getting repaired. Parts of it back up, still getting repaired. Well, you really want to take that bridge down again if you want to hurt Crimea. But we don't, I've said this 10,000 times, but I realize like some of you guys are new, so I don't want to repeat myself too much, but for the new folks, Biden has done a great job with organizing the international community. All you have to do is look at Macron from, I was going to say Mitterrand, Macron from France, who's saying, we've got to stop following the lead of the US, blah, blah, blah. That's because the US took the lead. Well, the US took the lead because guess what? Europe didn't take the lead, right? So, the Brits did, but you know what I mean? But you needed somebody with the US's caliber, the US's military, the US's budget, economy to take the lead. We did. I hate that when I'm sort of on it, when I'm on sort of a thought thing and then I go off the end there. I can't think now. I can't think. Anyway, I was going to tell you one other thing with regards to this one document. It did also talk about the problems Russia was going to have, which I thought was interesting. And interesting in that if this was a document leaked by the Russians, why would they leak something that criticized them as well? I don't, maybe to cover their butts, but listen to this. From the Washington Post, Moscow's troops also face considerable challenges, including low morale in the wake of major strategic blunders that have led to significant casualties and left pockets of soldiers poorly equipped. Russian units in the east are particularly shabby, according to a separate document contained in the U.S. leak, with intelligence revealing substandard care in camouflaging sensitive sites and reckless ammunition storage. So, interesting that that a second document was criticizing the Russians and that was leaked as well. So there you go. Let me do a quick pitch for my Discord, and then we're going to talk about a second leaked document that also sounds really scary that you shouldn't care about. Okay. My Discord, really quick. We've got a Discord community, very cool, around 1,800 people. We do not provide leaked documents on my Discord community, unlike the Minecraft Discord community where all the American documents were posted. But it's kind of a fun community where we're able to share information. We talk about Ukraine actually all day long. Very cool. Oh, I haven't seen this one before. This is cool. Dawn. Oh, thank you for the puppy sleep. We have a dog theme today. Thank you for the puppy sleepover. That was very cool, Dawn. Thank you. The Discord, we've got about 1,800 people. There's all sorts of different categories you can talk about. People hang out and talk about Ukraine all day. They talk about Trump. They talk about the elections. They talk about recipes. They talk about sports. They talk about their pets. You name it. Iran is another category I set up. All sorts of different things. It's a chat community in essence. Well, it's free. You can go check it out. It's discord.aravosis.com. You guys can find it via aravosis.com. You guys can find it via the Linktree link in my profile on TikTok. Just scroll down, and you'll see Discord. What I was going to say is one of the things we do there is we've got auctions, VIP auctions for the paid members, public auction for the rest of you. And I was going to show you one quick thing, actually, this wasn't the auction item. I'm not going to show you auction items today, I think. I'm not going to show you auction. I show you auction items every night. We can skip the auction items just to say that we auction a lot of cool stuff from Ukraine and elsewhere. All the Ukraine stuff, 50% of the profit, I send back to Ukraine. The other 50% I use because I'm doing this full time. This is my job. Nobody pays me except you guys. And I'm using the Discord to help provide an income so that I can pay my bills and keep doing this. But we've been giving 50% to Ukraine. We've already sent around $6,000 or $7,000, I believe, to Ukraine from just the auction alone. Otherwise, we raised about $85,000, $90,000 otherwise for Ukraine through everything else. But through the auctions, we've done that. And it's been a lot of fun. And I think it's a lot of us. The auctions have been fun. We've got a lot of cool stuff. We've got actually really cool stuff coming from Ukraine. I won't tell you until we get it, but some just wild, interesting stuff. So I think you guys will like that a lot. Anyway, it's discord.aravosis.com. All right, let me continue with, so B. Smith, do you think the U.S. will treat Taiwan the same as Ukraine if Taiwan went to war with China? Well, the current thinking on Taiwan, just a quick little detour here, is that Biden has made clear that if China invades Taiwan, the U.S. will put troops on the ground. We will commit American troops if China invades Taiwan. It's that serious. We have not made any kind of commitment with that with Ukraine. And in fact, Biden has said the opposite, that he will never commit American troops to Ukraine. I mean, again, if Russia starts using nuclear bombs, maybe, right? But otherwise, so the commitment for Ukraine, or for Taiwan, I should say, is already way more than what's happening in Ukraine. And there's a reason for it. Ukraine is an ongoing long-term concern. Thank you, FFS, for that. Is an ongoing long-term concern, meaning if the Russians take Ukraine, what does it mean for the security of NATO allies such as Poland? What does it mean for the Baltic states? What does it mean now for Finland, which is also on the border with Russia and is NATO now, right? What does it mean for the rest of NATO and possible future war with Russia, and emboldened Russia, right? With Taiwan, it's right there. Taiwan makes the majority of the world's top microchips. I remember there's a wonderful 60 Minutes, an American TV show segment on this, and they were saying something like 90% of the high-end chips are made in Taiwan. So if the Chinese invade Taiwan, it's really bad in terms of, trying to find my slippers as I talk to you guys. Where are my slippers? There's my slipper. It is really bad for us in terms of technology. We do not want the Chinese getting a hold of the Taiwan semiconductor industry. There's a couple. I'm trying to think. What was it? TSCM, maybe semiconductor. So there's two really big companies, as I recall, that we're really worried about. Now, the other issue here is China does not have a good semiconductor industry. they've been trying TSMC. Thank you. They're doing really poorly with their semiconductors. So all the more reason why it would be a huge jump if Chinese took over the Taiwanese industry. And by the way, then it would mean China would strangle us because they would be in control of our computers, our high-end computers. That would be very scary. So anyway, I hope that answers your question. So let me keep going here. So the special forces. So there's a second document. I grabbed this story from the BBC, but it's all over the internet as well. BBC says there's a leaked document, one of the documents that leaked, showing that the US, the UK, and let me see who else here, Latvia, France, Netherlands, have special forces operating in Ukraine. At first you read that and you go, oh my God, we've got troops on the ground. Then you look at it again, quick sip of water. You look at it again and go, oh, because the document says nothing about what the troops are doing. It says nothing about where they are. These could very easily, and I would say very likely, are troops that are, for example, liaising with the Ukrainian military. They're working in Kyiv. They're working in other safe areas, so to speak, that are not on the front lines. They're, for example, I will guarantee you, this isn't special forces. I will guarantee you we've got people with the CIA in Ukraine. We must. And they're helping Ukrainians, but they're helping like liaise with the Ukrainians, right? Work with them, help them basically be sort of a conduit for some of the information that the Americans are providing. Also, special forces, they're training. I mean, the Brits, I mean, Callum could probably tell you because he knows the British military, you know, but the Brits are, and Ben too, the Brits are probably training the Ukrainians. We're probably training the Ukrainians. There's no reason to believe that we're like fighting. And I would also say, Biden won't even give them missiles. He won't even give them long-range missiles that go 200 miles, 300 kilometers. You think he's putting American troops into fighting roles? Please, right? I mean, again, like, think of the context of who we're dealing with here. Joe Biden is not sending American troops to fight secretly when he won't even give Ukraine the damn missiles they need, which is a much less threatening kind of thing, right? So there you go. So my point is, don't worry about it. I brought it up because it is a big story that just came, but I wanted to tell you this, by the way, is sort of what I always say too, whereas, you know, stories can look like big stories. And then once you dig into them, you realize they're not. It's just one of the things sort of following news all these years that I've learned. Kyiv Independent, the acting defense minister of Denmark. This was an interesting story because it's kind of all over the place, this story. Listen to this. The acting defense minister of Denmark said on April 11th, which today, that the West could make a decision on the transfer of fighter jets to Ukraine before the summer. He didn't really give any more information. He simply said, listen to this, Denmark is not going to do this alone. What is this? We don't know. We will have to do this with several countries, and we will also have to have a dialogue with the Americans on this. It sounds like the Danes are trying to push the rest of NATO, maybe with some other countries, to provide more weapons to Ukraine and fighter jets, which is great. But, you know, like don't count your chickens before they hatch. In other words, we shouldn't look at this as, yay, they're getting more fighter jets. But it's interesting that I didn't even know NATO was seriously even discussing this. And the Danes are making it sound like there's at least a discussion, which is interesting. So let's see. Sky News. So a little update on the children, which is good. The children that Russia kidnapped. Now, mind you, there's anywhere from like 6,000 to maybe 15,000 children at least that Russia has kidnapped. They kidnapped Ukrainian children, brought them to Ukraine, and then put them up for adoption in Russian families and literally said they took them home as trophies of the war. It's like something out of, you know, ancient Greece or wherever, or any of these places where you go and you attack the other tribe or the other group of people and you steal their children and make them yours. It's crazy. Listen to this. So around 30 children were reunited with their families in Ukraine over the weekend. Thank you, Jay Ticker, for the hat and mustache. Do please keep the gifts coming for the TikTok gifts. Thank you, guys. Listen to this story from Sky News. So around 30 children were reunited with their parents. Dasha Rock, a 13-year-old girl, said she and her twin sister, listen to the details that this girl is saying. And mind you, she's 13. She's not lying about this, right? Listen to this. 13-year-old girl said she and her twin sister had agreed to leave the Russian-occupied city of Kherson. Thank you for the gifts there, Elle and Mike. the Russian-occupied city of Kherson last year and go to a holiday camp in Crimea for a few weeks. So one of the things, and we knew this already, one of the things the Russians were doing, they were telling families in the East, because some of the families in the East, a lot of them speak Russian. They trusted the Russians, some of them. So the Russians like invaded and told the families, things are a little hairy right now. We've got the war, we've got bombing. It might be better for you to send your kids over the summer, just for 6 weeks, to Crimea, the territory Russia's occupying down here. So from the territory, Kherson, oh God, I'm already spacing out. I know where Kherson is. Why am I spacing out? Over here. Jeez, I knew that. I was going to say Kherson over here, not over here. Over here, Kherson area, which the Russians occupied all of this. Take your kids from here because there's war going on and send them down here to Crimea. And again, it's for the best of your kids. They're just going to go to summer camp for 6 weeks and there's no fighting in Crimea. Won't that be lovely? So this is what they're telling the parents. So they told her parents that. Once in Crimea, listen to this, 13-year-old girl telling us this. Once in Crimea, Russian officials said the children would be staying for longer. Quote, they said we will be adopted, that we will get guardians, she said. When they first told us we will stay longer, we all started crying. Mind you, imagine the girl gets there for summer camp, and once she gets there, they say, surprise, you're going to get adopted by different parents now. I mean, honestly, it makes me think of World War II. I mean, it's not extermination, but you're putting these people on trains, you're sending them away, you're lying about where they're going, and once they get there, you sort of drop the bomb on them. I mean, it's horrific. Her mother, Natalia, said she had traveled from Ukraine to get to Crimea, because the Russians won't let them get through, right? Because they're occupying. From Ukraine, she had to go to Poland, Belarus. Okay, I'm going to show you on the map. Poland, all the way over. So her kid was here. Her kid is sent down here. She has to go all the way to Poland, Belarus, up here, Moscow, way up here, and then from Moscow, fly to Crimea all the way down here to get her kid. She said a lot of the times they were having to sleep standing up, the parents, because they couldn't get the kids. But of course, it was her kid, her daughters. What was she going to do? I mean, it's a war crime. This is why an arrest warrant was issued for Putin by the International Criminal Court. This is a war crime. You don't steal children, as you especially don't steal them and then say, we're going to give you new parents. I mean, that is, an animal does that. A terrorist does that. It sickens me though, because, it's bad enough all the stuff they do, killing civilians and everything else. Thank you, Chazak, for the owl. But messing around with children, and mind you, they've raped and killed children too. I mean, we know that. The soldiers have done that too. So we shouldn't be surprised that they're also going to kidnap children and basically sell them like this is I was going to say the Middle Ages. That might even be a little much for the Middle Ages. Thank you, Marcy. Sickening. I've got a few more stories. Actually, some of these are good stories, just so you know. I also have a Patreon, just to tell you really quick. I like to pitch the Patreon every night. Patreon is a very cool service where you can help out patrons who you like. It allows you to contribute like a set amount of money each month. It renews every month. And the nice thing is it does it automatically until you cancel it. And it's a nice way for people like me to see how much money you're actually getting each month. I hate talking money, but like, what do you do? How much money you're getting each month, because I'm trying to pay the bills. I'm doing this full time, right? Nobody's paying me other than you guys. So it helps to sort of have a much better sense. And eventually, I mean, some of the really big people on Patreon are making good money. If I can make enough money, then I no longer have to pitch you guys, which would be nice. But it's actually nice. I mean, it's already turning into a decent amount. It's small compared to my expenses, but still, you guys have been very generous, much more than I was able to get with my podcast. So thank you for that. But it's at patreon.com/Aravosis. You guys, I will take this off. You guys can find it at the bottom of the screen. Thank you for the super dog, Ellie. And you guys can find the Patreon link in my profile, the Linktree link on TikTok in my profile. Click the link, and in it, you'll see one of them being my Patreon. The final point with Patreon is if you purchase a $5 a month or more pledge, in essence, that will make you eligible to be a VIP member of our Discord. You have to go to the Discord and connect it. It's a little complicated, but the instructions are there in the comments on my first post on Patreon. Once you connect it, then you'll be able to join in our VIP auctions and other things. And our Saturday morning, we have a Saturday morning coffee talk that I just do for the paid subscribers. So stuff like that. Anyway, thank you guys for that. Let me go on. Ukraine has resumed electricity exports to Europe. This is interesting. So before the war, thank you, Kedro, for the confetti. Before the war, Ukraine was exporting electricity to Europe, right? They had an excess of electricity. They had to cut down last year because the Russians were bombing everything, right? They remember the Russian bombing campaign was going after mostly Ukraine's electrical infrastructure. Thank you for the cactus there, Royce. They were going after the electrical infrastructure in addition to just shooting apartment buildings. They were trying to kill civilians too. Well, the Russians have done such a bad job. I mean, think about this. They've been bombing Ukraine for so long now, trying to take out its electricity, the electrical plants, all this kind of stuff. Not only is the power back in Ukraine as of like 2 months ago now, really, they're no longer power shortages. They're no longer having to ration the power, but the Ukrainians now have so much power, they're able to export it. How's that for amazing? How's that for amazing, right? Sorry, somebody's asking, don't you read comments from the live? I don't read it when I'm in the middle of doing the news. No, because I can't read all the comments and do the news at the same time. I try to glance, but I look at the news. I look at the comments when I'm done. Once we finish the news part, then I look at the comments and we take them. But this is the part of the show where I go through the news first. Per Institute for the Study of War, Wagner Group financer Yevgeny Prigozhin. So this is the guy who's the Russian oligarch, the Russian billionaire. And he's been trouble. This guy, they're a mercenary group, okay? They're paid fighters. They do a lot of work in Africa, Middle East, for Russia. Basically, governments like Mali hire them to fight for them because they don't have good militaries themselves. Well, Prigozhin has been running this mercenary group that's been fighting in Ukraine. He's been really ticking off the Russian government and Putin because he keeps kind of challenging him, right? He keeps talking about how good his men are and how bad the Russian military is, and not just how bad the Russian military is, but how bad Russia is at fighting, right? In other words, how bad the military leaders are, the Minister of Defense, and implying Putin himself, which is interesting, right? So it is pretty clear that he's challenging Putin. It's pretty clear, I mean, challenging him just as far as saying, I'm better than you. The estimate is now that he may run for president, Prigozhin, in 2024 against Putin. Now, good luck with that, right? In Russia's a country where you get thrown off a balcony for that. And now he's sucking up to a Russian political party. He's trying to gain control of a Russian political party, which again, the thought is it's for politics overall having influence, but it's potentially for a presidential run. I think Putin's going to kill this guy. I mean, at some point, he's too big. Their banks are too big to fail. Some of the thought was that Prigozhin's too big to kill because why wouldn't Putin get rid of him at this point? I think Putin's going to get rid of this guy. I think he's going to have had it with him. And let's see, but I think it's going to be a problem. Two more stories. Actually, this is a really interesting one too. Sorry, a lot of interesting news tonight. Listen to this one because it tells you again kind of what the Russian government is and the dictatorship that Russia really has become again. And anybody old enough remembers this is just like the Soviet Union. Listen to this, okay? This was also Institute for the Study of War, which is a really good defense think tank here in Washington, D.C. Russian authorities reportedly charged Russian military doctor Yuri Yevich, he's a military doctor in the Russian military, under the discreditation law. The discreditation law is the law that says you can go to jail for 15 years for criticizing the military, for discrediting the military, okay? And it's, in general, it's for citizens who are protesting, right? So listen to this. They're charging him under the discreditation law, this military doctor, because of a lecture on tactical medicine he gave, in other words, military medicine, to Rosgvardia employees, to Russian government officials. He gave a lecture on tactical medicine. Someone reported him to the authorities as offering a, quote, negative assessment of Russian forces. How screwy is that? I mean, okay. Bye. Sorry, I have to getting rid of someone here. Okie dokie. Oh, sorry. Go away. All right. There we go. Sorry, I had to get rid of this. Is somebody posting weird stuff. They're going now. but okay, so right, so he gave an internal talk to Russian government employees, military affiliated employees, talking about tactical medicine and basically saying that things weren't going well, right? That some of the problems the Russians were having with their medicine on the ground with the troops. And someone reported him as being too critical, so they charged him with a crime because he's briefing government officials on the war and tactical medicine, but he was too negative. Thank you, Malcolm, for the hat there. It's I mean, it's insane. This is a dictatorship. Also, they're out of their minds. They're out of their minds for what this guy is doing, because you are sending the message. And this is frankly how Russia got so screwed up to start with in terms of, well, under the Soviet Union and now again under Putin. If this is sending a message to everybody that you can't talk about the problems. So if you're like this guy and you want to be mods, I'm not even in the mood. Thank you. I saw that on TikTok. Thank you. Wasn't even in the mood on that one. But if you're a Russian government official, you now realize that you can't talk about it. You can't, if you're talking about anything, you can't say, well, we need to, like a doctor, we need to do this differently because we're not doing this right. Oh, that's negative. That's negative. It is. I mean, I'm glad in a way. I'm glad in a big way. This is making it harder for anybody working in Russia to do their job. And it's making it harder for anybody working with the military to do their job. And you know what? Great. In other words, you can't offer any criticism, any analysis that's critical. Good. Thank you, Ocean Flow. Hopefully they'll tell them it keeps working fine. Last story. Okay, this is a fabulous story. Listen to this. This was from a Reuters reporter. He was citing somebody else, so he doesn't know if it's true, but this Reuters reporter felt confident enough to post this on Twitter. Ukrainian hackers broke into the emails of Lieutenant Colonel Sergei Alexandrovich Morgovich, wanted by the Department of Justice, U.S. Department of Justice, for allegedly breaking into the Democratic National Committee in 2016. So he's, I believe, with Russian military intelligence, the GRU, and he's one of the people who broke into not Hillary's emails, but remember the whole issue of them stealing the Democratic documents and that whole trying to influence the American election. So the Department of Justice has issued a warrant for him or whatever. The Ukrainian hackers broke into his emails and ordered sex toys and an FBI pin to be sent to his home in Moscow. Now, this may have been that story I heard about a few weeks ago. I'm not sure, but it didn't include an FBI pin at the time. But I love that they ordered sex toys and a pin from the FBI to send to his home in Moscow. And of course, using his money to do it, which is fabulous. Anyway, very funny. Very funny. All right. Final thing I was telling you, and then we'll do the questions. I also have a store. The store is very cool. Pretty much, I think everything there might be Ukrainian themed. It's store.aravosis.com. Again, you can find it at aravosis.com at the bottom. You can find it in the link in my TikTok profile, the Linktree link. But what's cool is we've got a lot of Ukrainian themed stuff. 50%, the same thing as my auction. 50% of the profits from the Ukrainian themed stuff. Thank you, user 822. We are sending to Ukraine, and we've been using it lately to buy the materials to make camouflage nets for the military. But I wanted to show you. I was auctioning off a design that a Ukrainian girl had made for the troops, and her school gave us a number of the designs so we could auction them off to help. Well, somebody last week, I think, had said, somebody actually auctioned a bid and got the design, but somebody said, could you maybe make a t-shirt of this? And I thought, let's try. So I took a picture. I got a sample of the t-shirt. It's fabulous. Look at this. The t-shirt says, for peace in Ukraine. Okay. Hold on. Check this out. I mean, I love this. I mean, it's a little bit of a girl shirt, but it's really, it turned out this was a drawing that a girl did using like markers, using like magic markers. But I mean, isn't that fabulous? I love it. I just think it turned out really neat. So I was very happy. So again, I may not wear it. It's a little girly for my taste, but what I like about it is a little girl drew it. which is kind of neat. A little Ukrainian girl, and they were drawing it for the troops, which is kind of neat. You know what I mean? All right. So let's go and do questions. You guys on TikTok, remember you can use the Q&A link in my profile. Please do that. For the rest of you, you can use the comment box at the bottom. You can also obviously super chat questions. We love those. So feel free to do those as well. Let me jump in first. That's the thing. It was drawn by a little girl, which I just think is wonderful. Thank you, Julie. Yeah, you guys can go and check out. It's like I said, store.aravosis.com. On TikTok, it's even easier. Just go to my profile, click the Linktree link, and it'll take you to all my links. I will say the shirts run a little bit small. Like I got a medium. The medium's, it's too tight on me, unfortunately. So I'm going to keep it as a sample to show folks. And I may just, give it away to somebody. You pay shipping and I'll send you the shirt if anybody can wear a medium. But it's a little bit of a small medium. So keep that in mind when ordering them. But they're nice shirts. Thank you, Jetta. I just love it. Like I said, in person, it's hard to tell you in person. The colors are gorgeous. It's just a really, I don't know if you guys can see, because it's got the sunlight now too on it. It's just, anyway, the colors are gorgeous. All right, let me pull up. Pull up. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. I sent her packing, Roshin. All right, guys, let me pull this Q&A. Okie dokie. Really weird. What's your thoughts about the two-faced Macron trying to deepen ties with the Chinese military? So this is from Mordu. Mordu's talking about French President Macron, not really a Ukraine issue, but still going to China last week. And he ends up putting out a statement a few days ago that was really bad, good and bad. He's saying how, look, the Callum, be nice. He's saying how Callum's going after you on TikTok, Roshan, just so you know. So you're throwing me now. Stop it. You're throwing me for the topic. Macron, he goes to China. A couple days ago, he says, Europe cannot just follow America. Europe has to take the lead. In essence, this kind of concept of Europe should be its own foreign policy. I don't know if he said this exactly, but Europe should be its own foreign policy superpower. Like, collectively, we should have the same amount of power that the United States have or China has, right? Not a bad point. He was talking about Ukraine and how Europe has been following America's lead and not taking the lead themselves. Again, great idea, right? I mean, great idea. Then he throws in and says, relations with China are very important. I'm paraphrasing here. We should not just get into disputes with China just because America wants to. We should only get involved when our national interest demands it. And he suggests that Taiwan is not Europe's national interest. Europe doesn't care about Taiwan. That was Macron sending a message to the Chinese that it is okay to invade Taiwan. It was insane. It was stupid. It was sloppy. It was, I don't even know what to call it. It was immature. It was, and unfortunately, when I look at this, look, somebody had posted on Twitter yesterday. I thought it was interesting. Said that he was reading a biography of de Gaulle, General de Gaulle, Charles de Gaulle, who was French premier and leader of France and all of this. President de Gaulle. He was president, wasn't he? I'm always forgetting. In France, the system. He was president. Yeah, de Gaulle, and he was saying, I've been reading the biography of de Gaulle. It's very good. But I finally come to realize that generations of French leaders have sort of made it their business to sort of basically do the opposite of what everybody else would like them to do, to be a pain in the ass. I just think it's incredibly, it makes me think that Macron is doing all of this for attention. Remember before the war started and he kept going back and forth with Putin, visiting Putin and all this kind of stuff, doing his little shuttle diplomacy. And he was saying really dumb things. And we were like, stop it. Stop it. I think he wants to put France on the map. He wants to put himself on the map. And his ego on this is more important than the substance. And I think he may not be very bright. I always sort of liked the man, but he may not be very bright, I think. So it's not good. It's not good. Anyway, I mix macaroni and cheese with tuna, by the way, Jade, and I think it's good. Believe it or not. Clam, I might not have done. Sorry. People are discussing recipes over on YouTube. macaroni and cheese and clam. I probably would not have done that. Tuna is surprisingly decent. Ben has a question. Thank you, Ben. A very generous question. Sounds a bit far-fetched, but is there a possibility that these documents, the leaked documents that were leaked by someone who has the intention of revealing to us how badly the Ukrainians need the new and better weapons to put more pressure on Biden? I don't think so, because the problem is, I mean, it's an interesting idea. The problem is that too many of the documents simply undercut us and undercut our allies, right? There were documents made to some of the documents undercut our relationship with Taiwan. I'm sorry, with South Korea. Other documents undercut our relationship with Egypt. None of that. That does nothing necessarily. No. I mean, the Egypt one, maybe. The Egypt one, you could say that the Egyptians, according to the documents, secretly had agreed to prepare something like 40,000 rockets for Russia, which would have been a sanctions violation and really bad, especially because Egypt is one of our top allies, America's top allies, and we give them $1 billion a year in aid. So huge deal. The Russians would love to fracture that relationship, but you could argue that finding out that our allies, UAE is another country supposedly that agreed to do something, finding out that our Middle Eastern allies are secretly helping Russia would potentially put more pressure on Biden to do more. It's possible. I mean, I saw somebody suggest somewhere China could be. I mean, maybe Davey's talking about that. I think it could be China too. I will say on its face, it just feels like Russia. It feels like Russia screwing around. It just does. How they got it is interesting. I mean, this is a lot of documents, and these seem to be really good. If you're trying to cause trouble, these are really good documents. This is like Snowden or Chelsea Manning, you know. Although Chelsea Manning, ugh, don't get me started on her. But I mean, all of these people should be in jail as far as I'm concerned. But in any case, yeah, no, it's yes, I just maybe, but I still feel like actually one of the concerns today, a European diplomat was saying today, I think quoted in the British press, that, or I shouldn't say that, I think it might have been the Washington Post. I read all the papers before I come on the show with you guys, so I can never remember where I read something. In any case, a British diplomat talking to somebody in the news was saying that they were concerned that it could have been an America First Trump supporter in the Pentagon, that basically the same kind of cleavages that have happened in American society have. Oh, Julian Assange should be in jail for life. Yeah, he'll be lucky if that's all he gets. Yeah. Sorry, we're responding to a comment on TikTok. But that the same kind of divisions we see in American society between Trump and not Trump and all of that could be happening in the military, and it could be a military person who, you know, doesn't. Trump has said we shouldn't be supporting Ukraine. We're going to get, mind you, Trump has said we're getting into World War III, right? If we keep supporting Ukraine, it'll be World War III, the end of the world. Well, if you think like that, you'd think I'm doing the most honorable thing ever, leaking these documents, if I'm stopping World War III, right? I mean, so who knows? I still feel like it's just the Russians that broke in and got everything. But you know what? I'm not going to talk about Julian Assange. I'm not going to talk, other than the fact that he should be in jail. And before you think Julian Assange is a hero, Julian Assange said back in 2016 that the whole point of him leaking the documents on WikiLeaks, the Russian documents, was because he wanted to make Hillary lose and Donald Trump win the election. So I got news for you. If you think Julian Assange is a hero, the guy was literally trying to get Donald Trump elected, and he admitted it. So, you know, give me a break. No, the guy should be in jail just for that. Thank you. Who was that? Oh, thank you, Pauline. Pauline was saying she heard us with Vlad on earlier today. Vlad was interesting today. Thank you, Happy Beach, for the super dogs. Inspired woman. All right, more questions. Thanks, Ben, for that. Again, very generous of you. Brave Cobra says, could it be Minecraft propaganda to get more people to play the game? Because it was leaked on Minecraft servers or Minecraft Discord servers. Thank you. Let me pull up more questions on TikTok here. How difficult is it to find who leaked the documents? I don't know. And what I mean by that is intentionally, they're not going to tell us what they do. The American intelligence community will not tell us what they do to try to make it so that if you leak documents, you'll be caught. For example, you know, if the document's printed, do they have different hidden watermarks or something? If the documents are come up on a computer, is there always something a little bit different in each document when it comes up on each person's computer? I don't know, right? But one would hope at this point, this stuff is so complicated because we have so many classified documents out there anyway, and so many people have access to them, that there would be a way of ensuring that there'd be a way of ensuring that nobody could just, because this is really bad. This is really bad. You should not be able to just leak 100 of these kind of super classified documents. It's really bad. I mean, I'm very surprised that somebody could even do this, although I realize a lot of people do have access, but still, you know. I talked about the boots on the ground thing actually earlier in the show. We probably have special forces who are doing training, and also folks who are helping with liaison and stuff. But I would very much doubt that any U.S. troops are fighting. Very much doubt that. Think about it. Biden is too afraid to send Ukraine long-range missiles that go 200 miles because he's afraid of making Putin angry. He's not going to send American troops. I mean, there's no way. I mean, you know, I wouldn't send American troops to fight at this point, but Biden, and I'm way more hawkish on this than Biden is. I would send them the long-range missiles. Biden won't. So Biden is way too cautious. There's no way he would put American troops fighting. Zero end. When do you think the war will end? Anytime between a year and 10 years. I mean, unfortunately, America gets involved in Iraq the second time, Iraq and Afghanistan. We're in both countries for almost 20 years. Russia gets involved in Afghanistan. It's there for 10 years. Hey, you, Dennis, from Kyiv. Nice to see you. You know, they're there for 10 years. This is the kind of war that could drag out. For example, I don't see Ukraine giving up on the territory that Russia's occupying, right? If Ukraine isn't able to get all of its land back, if I were Ukraine, I would launch a guerrilla war, a total guerrilla war. Or, I mean, they're doing one, but I mean, ramping it up 100 times, where you are just blowing up everything related to Russia in those occupied territories. So it just becomes impossible for Russians to stay, right? You just target them so much that the deaths become too high. So I don't, even if the war stops, I don't see how the war stops. Ukraine cannot agree to any kind of peace that lets Russia keep any new territory that it gained in the last year, for sure. There's no way. So, you know, I think NATO should have sent peacekeeping. Ryan Gray is saying NATO messed up years ago. They should have sent peacekeeping troops. I think so. I think when we saw Russia getting ready to invade, and we knew it from last fall, Russia invades February of last year. We knew from like November, at least November before, because we even went to Russia and told them and said, we know you're invading. We've got all the intel. We should have put NATO boots on the ground, and we should have said, great. Putin says he's not invading Ukraine, so there's no risk. We're putting NATO troops on the ground. And what's he going to do? Putin would be furious because he doesn't want NATO that close to him. Let him. What's he going to do? Go to war with NATO when we can beat him like that? He's not gonna. But we were too cautious. And I mean, again, too much of this is there's way too much caution going on with Russia. Thank you, Bonnie, for the Panther pause. You know, really, anyway. Well, that's possible too. Chris S. says this war will only stop when Putin stops breathing. That's possible too. Again, he may not stop. And as long as he doesn't stop, Ukraine's not going to stop, and Ukraine should stop. So the question becomes, can we keep supplying them? Will people support it? You know, let's see. I'm not very expert on this, but we are. V. Jader is asking, why doesn't the U.S. invest in semiconductor development and manufacture with Taiwan and lessen Taiwan's vulnerability if attacked by China? Some of you folks were saying the other day that Taiwan is actually investing, I believe, in some plants here in the U.S. Also, the Biden administration has put together some proposals, actually some funds, some money to help support the domestic semiconductor industry. So we're trying to build it up more, and Taiwan, thanks, Fall Guy, and Taiwan itself is kind of working with us to do it. Having said that, somebody asked this last week, and I sort of had an epiphany about it. If you're Taiwan, you don't want you don't want to be redundant. You don't want to be, well, it's okay if Taiwan gets obliterated and China takes us because our factories will be duplicated in America. That's great for America. That's not great for Taiwan, right? Taiwan doesn't want it to be okay if Taiwan is obliterated by China. Taiwan wants to be so unique and so important that America and Europe could never afford. America and I would say the developed world could never afford to let China invade and take over, right? So if you're Taiwan, you really want to keep yourself, you want to keep the plants in your country so that America and the world has a reason to defend your country, right? That's my analysis. So I think Taiwan's trying to help, but I think they're trying to help partially because they can't provide, they don't want to make themselves obsolete in essence, right? Because then no one will defend them. Smart to send rations to Ukraine? I don't know. I don't know that Ukraine's having problems with food, though. I don't think they're having problems with food necessarily. I think that's true. Gunnerman is saying America will blow the chip plants if they fall to China. I think that's absolutely true, right? That basically, if China were to invade and we were not able to stop the invasion, we would go in and bomb the plants to, to kingdom come. So China would never get their hands on them. That's assuming that the bombing is sufficient. But yeah. All right. Well, we talked about this a little bit. I mean, Shade Blade is saying, could the West have prevented this war? Sanctions didn't work, although we knew sanctions weren't going to stop Putin from invading. Biden even said that. He even said that he goes, sanctions aren't going to stop him, and they're not going to make him pull out. And offering a position at NATO didn't work so well for Georgia. I think the way you prevent the war is you, just like Taiwan, you make it too painful for the war to start. The only way to make it too painful is either Ukraine joins NATO or there's a de facto NATO where NATO puts troops on Ukraine's soil before the war started, and you tell Russia, we are peacekeeping troops. If you invade and bomb us, it's an act of war and we're at war with NATO. And Russia would have gone, shit, and they wouldn't have invaded. There's no way they would have invaded. But that would have taken some brass balls. That would have taken a different president. Again, I like Biden. This is not Biden's forte. It's Ronald Reagan's forte, ironically, because Reagan had his issues. But this is the kind of thing, I always say, this is the kind of thing Reagan would do. It's the kind of thing Margaret Thatcher would do. It's the kind of thing Jeane Kirkpatrick would do. Not the kind of thing Joe Biden would do. It's also not the kind of thing Barack Obama would do. You kind of need a Republican who's a bit of an ass, unfortunately, to do this, or a Democrat who's enough of a hawk to do it. I don't know that we've got any Democrats who are this much of hawks. Maybe. I'm not sure. I don't know if we do, actually. I didn't think about that. Whether there's a Democrat, for example, a Democrat where if they were president, they would have been like, no way, no way. We're going in, we're putting troops. They want to cross the line. Clinton might have. Bill Clinton might have. No, that's true. That's true. Bill Clinton might have. That's actually very true. Bill Clinton went into Kosovo, saved them. Let's see what else we got. A few more questions, guys, if you got them. I don't want to drag this out too long, but if you got more questions. Well, interesting question here. So official Rye guy. I'll get to that in a second, Brave Cobra. Official Rye guy. What are the chances of Russia attacking Ukraine again through Belarus, even with low numbers, to apply pressure during a Ukrainian counteroffensive? So, okay, we haven't had the map in a while. Russia over here, Belarus, dictatorship. Thank you, Tina. That was cute. Dictatorship over here, big friends of Putin. When the Russians invaded the first time, they had troops coming here, like here. I'm probably missing a front. And some of their troops came through Belarus here, basically down. The Ukrainians, to stop this from happening in the future, have put a lot of landmines and things like that around the border here. There's also some marshland or something here that's very difficult to cross, but the Ukrainians have mined it to make it. But what the Russians would probably love to do, and they've certainly created the concern, whether they will, the Russians would love to have the Ukrainians concerned about an invasion here and possibly even have a mini one. The reason is, if you're Russia, this is what Russia controls now. Ukraine's counteroffensive could be here, could be here, could be here, could be here, but it's going to be somewhere around here. You want to force the Ukrainians to move their troops up here, which is hundreds of miles away, very far away. They move troops, they move weapons, they have logistics, supplies. It's a pain in the ass. And it cuts back on the amount of weapons and supplies Ukraine can put over here where things really are happening. So if you're Russia, you at least want to convince the Ukrainians there's going to be a partial invasion here, just so Ukraine has to keep troops and equipment up here. And at best, maybe you even have a mini invasion happen here, so Ukraine's got to keep troops. So yes, I think you will see. I think you will see that happening. I mean, I don't know whether they'll invade because the Ukrainians seem to have done a good enough job that an invasion would not go well. But nonetheless, they might. How relevant is the UN? Brave Cobra asks. At the UN Security Council after this episode, they kind of said a lot but did nothing. Yeah, I mean, the UN's fun. Again, don't ask me. I worked there. I don't like the UN. Free Muscovy. That's funny. The problem with the UN Security Council is Russia, China, America, France, and Great Britain, the UK, all have vetoes. So we can stop anything from happening. Anything that has to happen, any of us. So unless it's something that has nothing to do with any of our countries, we can't get anything done. The UN overall, I mean, I guess my question would be, how relevant was the UN before this? Now, I don't know enough about like UN peacekeepers to know whether other than raping children, what they've really accomplished around the world. Whole story on that. Google it. And the UN covered it up, of course. I don't know, the UN agencies at the headquarters, like in New York, are terrible. I worked at UNDP, terrible agency. I knew people that worked at UNICEF, terrible agency, UNICEF. Okay. Now, it is possible the local UNICEFs, like the American one, maybe they're good. I don't know. I can tell you the headquarters people say it's horrific. So I'm not really sure. I am really taken aback now at having to figure out what the UN does that's any good. And honestly, it's kind of sad, but the conservatives were right about the UN, I would say, in our country and probably worldwide, in that these are not the people you want making decisions for you. They're bad people. They're corrupt as hell. There's no way in hell I would put power in their hands. So I don't know what their power was before this. I'm not too sure I care if it'd be nice if we all somehow, the UN will only fight with alien invasion. That's about it, and even the alien invasion, you'll have Macron trying to strike a deal with the aliens, fighting with the aliens is not in the French national interest. Macron will get a photo op with the aliens and he'll be like team alien, it'll be guaranteed. Anyway, oh man. A few more questions, guys, and then we'll go. I think it's 7:10. Beep 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 beep. Thank you for the hat and mustache. Truthful. Sorry. You guys, I always love, because the YouTube folks are funny though, because sometimes they start chatting amongst themselves. So I look for questions from you guys, but I can't find any because you're busy chatting amongst yourselves. It cracks me up. Yeah, that's really bizarro. So I'm just looking at some of the trolling. We got trolls on YouTube today. We never get trolls on YouTube, Well, again, hopefully, Dewey, the local UNICEFs are good. We hope. I will tell you, like I said, sadly, the national headquarters, terrible. UNDP as well, corrupt as hell, just terrible. And again, it's a bunch of people. Honestly, it's a bunch of people there to make money. They go there because they're high-paying jobs. They're arrogant. Okay, that's right. We promised we weren't going to get me talking about the UN again. The worst job experience of my life was getting hired by the UN. Oh, Susan Krauthamel, give some money. Happy birthday. Oh, I thought it was you. You're saying somebody else. Oh, I thought you were saying it was your birthday. Sorry, Susan had a funny comment on YouTube about some of the trolls or something else. That's funny. Okay, never mind. All right, Paul WLC. Let me look for your thing on the Q&A on TikTok. All right, guys. As I said, we're slowing down. We'll call it quits shortly here. Hang on here. Oops. It's hard because wait. Are you sure you just sent something? It's not. I'm trying to pull it up again. I'm not seeing anything from you, Pod WLC. Not anything. No, not anything. No, I can't find it. Sorry, I was looking, can't find it. Interesting. Official Rye guy, not Ukraine related per se, but could you see Bibi, who's the prime minister Netanyahu of Israel, and the Israeli right or far right launching a war against Iran to improve their standing after the protests? I mean, maybe. The only thing is, look, an Israeli prime minister. Oh, you did. Get out of here, Susan. Really? You got a check for $1,000. Wow. Well, you know what though? I mean, a lot of the good auction stuff already got sold. I feel bad. Look, for $1,000, you can pick what you want. You know what? Contact me separately. For $1,000, I'll show you what we've got, and you can buy one of the things we've got if you want. You know, because that's a hell of a lot of money, obviously. So, but if you want, do it that way because there's only a couple things up. I feel bad. I feel bad you bidding on something if there's only like 2 or 3 things left. Because sorry, real quick, guys, but Susan's talking about helping us on our auctions on Discord because I'm traveling on Saturday. I have a lot of the auctions ending. I think all of them today and tomorrow. So because that way it allows me to get them mailed by Thursday or Friday, and then I fly out Saturday. So, you know, no. The favorite wall piece isn't going to. Good try, WC. My stuff that will not be sold will not be sold. Yeah, no. My favorite Berlin wall pieces I got myself. I'm not giving away the favorites. I've got some smaller ones, but we can talk. We can talk. But like I said, I've got the Zelensky sweatshirts. We've got Ukrainian stamps and all of that, of course. But the Zelensky sweatshirts are very popular and very cool. I do like them. They're very, and they've been going for auction. I'd say they've been going for probably a couple $100. We just sold another one for like $200. Those are really nice. V-necks. No, we don't have any V-necks. I have nothing V-neck. No, because the store doesn't even have any V-necks really, because people like the crew necks. But we've only got in terms of the shirts, we've got the sweatshirts, and the sweatshirts are all crew neck sweatshirts. I'd have to think what else we've got. You know what? If you're on the Discord, come on the Discord and we can talk. Afterwards or whatever, because I can sort of tell you what else I've got. But we've got, a lot of the cool actually there's, and there's more Ukrainian stuff coming in as well. Let me tell you, actually, we've also got some more Russian fighter jet pieces coming in, but I haven't received them yet. But those would be cool. We can talk. But I mean, for that kind of a donation, you can pick what you want, as far as that goes. I mean, you could certainly give it to the drone thing too. Yeah. I mean, but yeah, shopping with John, exactly. The John Home Shopping Network. All right. Let me do a quick recap and then call it quits, guys. But thank you, Susan. That's really sweet of you. I know. Well, the t-shirts from kids, you can just buy one of those on the t-shirts from kids are on my Represent store, but they're not going to cost you $1,000. They're going to cost you $25 and then shipping. Those are on the Represent store. So just store.aravosis.com. Again, it doesn't really help you in terms of donating that much, but you can find, that's the link to the store. You can find, there's a number of the kids shirts there. Go check them out. They're all there, actually. Not all. The good ones. There's 3 or 4, I think. But those are very cool. Anyway, but there's other auction stuff. Or either that or hold it. For example, I've got another of the hang on a second. Stop doing this once we're done here. I would say the most popular thing we have, but it's up to you. I was able to procure a few more of these. These are the Ukrainian bracelets that were made from the steel at the Azovstal steel plant. Those are really cool. And those have been going for more than anything. Those have been going for a lot because there's only so many and they don't make them anymore. But again, it depends if you like this kind of thing, but it's an arm bracelet, but the steel is from the steel plant with the Ukrainian sign on it, made from the steel to honor the Ukrainian troops, the 2,000 Ukrainian troops who fought the 14,000 Russian troops and held them off for like 2 months. Anyway, but oh yeah, I was showing it to you. Sorry guys, we're now I'm showing Susan all this stuff. This is the newest shirt that I had made from one of the little girl's drawings, and it says "For Peace in Ukraine." This one I thought was really cute. But again, it's only going to cost you $25 or whatever. So with shipping. So, but that one I think is. But there's some other ones that are really pretty too. In any case, as I said, we've got some more plane parts coming. And there's some cool stuff from Ukraine from the battlefield as well. So it depends if you're into military stuff or not. But that won't be coming until mid-May, really. Probably third week in May. All right, guys, let me do a quick recap. But happy to work with you here because that's really sweet of you. All right. There's video going around of what may be Russian troops decapitating a Ukrainian soldier. Bakhmut may be finally in its final days. Oh, Harvey, Harvey! Harvey, what have you been doing? Bakhmut may be in its final days. The Russians may finally be winning it in a few days. Another leaked document, the Washington Post reports that there is an American intelligence assessment that Ukraine may have a difficult time getting much additional ground in its counteroffensive, which is worrisome. But I'm not surprised because I am worried about how well Ukraine will do in the counteroffensive. So I don't think that's news. Special Forces, BBC says a leaked document shows that the Brits, the Americans, the Latvians, the French, and the Dutch have special forces troops in Ukraine, but we don't know what they're doing, but we doubt that they're actually fighting. They're probably doing training. The acting defense minister of Denmark says that before the summer, so that means in the next 2 months or so, the West could make a decision on the transfer of fighter jets to Ukraine. That's pretty wild. Russia is blocking the grain. Oh, I forgot to mention this. Russia's blocking the grain deal again. Surprise. They cut off inspections. Somebody mentioned yesterday that Russia was slowing down inspections. They actually cut them off today to try to cut off the grain shipments from Ukraine. Around 30 children were united with their families in Ukraine after being kidnapped by the Russians. They gave some harrowing stories of the Russians basically telling them you've been abandoned and we're gonna basically give you away to new Russian parents. Ukraine has resumed electricity exports to Europe, which is pretty wild considering Russia has spent months trying to destroy Ukraine's electrical infrastructure. Wagner Group financier Yevgeny Prigozhin is trying to gain control of a Russian political party, possibly to take on Vladimir Putin in the 2024 presidential election. And finally, Russian authorities reportedly charged a Russian military doctor with discrediting the military, which could put him in jail for 15 years because he gave a lecture to Russian government employees, quasi-military, about tactical medicine. And in the lecture, he told them about problems the Russian troops were having with their medicine on the battlefield. And presumably he was giving advice as to how to do it better. Somebody thought he was too negative about the government. So they, some Russian Kerensky thought he was too negative, reported him to the government, and they arrested him. And now they're charging him with a charge that could get him 15 years in jail because he's a doctor doing a briefing, right? It's losing, not losing. A doctor doing a briefing for the Russian military, in essence, on what they need to do better. He was too negative. It's like, okay, thank you, Michael, for that. Thank you for the whale. We'll do the wave. Very sweet of you, Michael. Thank you for that. And there you go. And that's the news for today. So thank you, guys. Yeah. Any case, Susan, whatever you want, obviously, but happy to work with you. I will say the bracelet is but it depends if you like the bracelet or somebody who would. The bracelet is the thing that folks across the board have liked the most. That typically those are going for around $350, $400, I'd say. They're people, that's the best auction item we've had. But it's got to be something you like, So don't do it if it's not don't do it. Hold off if you want. Feel free to hold off too. I'll have some more stuff up, but as I said, some really cool military stuff won't be coming until probably because it's coming to DC, but I'm going to be gone. My friend Damien's house sitting. Damien's going to bring it in so the thieves don't get it, but I won't even be able to show you guys until third week in May, really, the new auction stuff. So I'll be auctioning stuff from Chicago, but smaller things. plane parts, things like that. All right, guys, let me go. Thank you so much. I will talk to you again. Otherwise, see you tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, US tomorrow. And again, if you can help, final point, if you can help us, as I said, with the fundraiser we're doing for the extender for the drones, we're buying technology that the Ukrainian military specifically asked us to get them. They need help. They wanted 3 pieces of equipment that can extend the length that your drone can go and stay in contact. I don't want to do Discord. I really want to, but I don't, JSM. When we go long like this, I'm kind of tired. And I can already feel my voice stressing a little. Sorry guys about Discord. But it extends the range the drones can go by like 8 or 10 times. So they can go 8 or 10 times farther away from the operator with this controller. So they're incredibly beneficial to the military. I mean, in essence, you're buying them a superpowered drone by getting them this technology in essence. They're only $600 a piece, $612. We were about $150 short. Vlad also said he wants to get some new wires that are longer. So you can sort of basically, it's outside, you're inside the house hiding so you don't get bombed. Anyway, Vlad. I know mods are tired too. Exactly. That's what I mean. Like when it goes long like this, I start getting tired. All right, guys, it's okay. I appreciate it. Yeah, exactly. Or Callum will get you. All right, guys, I'll see you tomorrow though. Otherwise, okay. 6 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night. And thank you again for all the support. I appreciate it. And the mods, as always. All right. Bye, guys. Oh, I don't mind. No, Susan, it's okay. For that, Susan, you can take me away from Discord. Please, are you kidding? That kind of generosity, you earn some brownie points on that one. All right, guys, have a good night.